Hi, everybody. I'm Jordan Jesimondo, CEO and founder of DVM Moms, and we are here with Tom Seco and CJ Burnett from Florida Veterinary Advisors to talk about all things financial today. So I'll let you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Well, my name's CJ Burnett. I'm one of the founders, along with Tom Seco. Um, I'm a fully licensed financial advisor, and Tom and I have been doing this for about, it's over a decade now, right, Tom?
Close to it. What is it? Around May of 2014 is when you and I teamed up. So yeah, that's gone
Over
on
a decade.
almost 11 years now. Yeah.
Really, we started over a decade ago. We started specializing specifically with veterinarians because we actually had our first client was that came from the veterinary field, owned a business, and she owned a business with her husband. And whenever they became clients, obviously we took them through our planning process. They got comfortable with kind of how we do things. And she said, you know what, you guys need to talk to all DVMs. And we were like, oh, okay. At the time we had a lot of different clients from a lot of different areas. And so next thing you know, we start speaking at associations. We started investigating, and Tom more or less, I think, started wanting to get into the world of veterinary medicine and just helping DVMs in general, because he was at a training. Well, actually, Tom, let me let you tell that story.
Okay. One thing is I will say, from being in the financial business since 2011. CJ, you've been there as well. We actually didn't work together for years, and then eventually managed to stumble across each other, which is it's been pretty awesome building out what we have done and where we're continuing to go. And I always wanted to have an area to focus on, have an industry or some place that we can be able to provide ongoing support, guidance, really understand it. And I was sitting in a training one day, and I was really just kind of, who do I talk to? How do we help people? Previously, I had actually worked with teachers beforehand, and I was sitting in the training, and I was like, I don't know if I want to work with teachers again. A lot of them were just very grumpy, and I was just like, I don't know if this is a direction I want to go. And then eventually we were sitting in a training about disability insurance, where we're basically given a list of people saying, hey, look, these are occupations that we can really support and give a lot of guidance to. And I remember looking at that sheet, and I was like, who on here do I really identify with? And there were doctors and attorneys and accountants. And I was like, man, a lot of these people are kind of stuffy, or I don't know if I can work with them or not. And then I remember seeing veterinarians on there, and I'm a huge animal lover. I've got a little Maltipoo. He actually just had ACL, or was it CCL and MPL surgery recently. So he's locked up in his little doggy stroller next to me at the moment.
That's
And
no fun.
yeah, I know he wants to run around so badly. He's going on week 4 tomorrow.
Oh,
And
gosh.
yeah,
You're getting there.
I know he's getting there. He's doing good. We try to keep him from jumping and running too much, so he doesn't overexert himself. And he likes to jump out of his stroller, so I have to zip the stroller closed so he can't jump out, which I feel so bad. But I'm like, it's for your own good, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyway, besides the fact that all, like, my wife always pokes fun at me about my love of animals, and I used to have fish and cats, and never really got to this extreme part of it all. But I was like, this is a great way to talk with people. And from there, it was just, we found that the veterinary community was not getting a lot of guidance from an education standpoint. A lot of it was more of, I'm in school, they tell me I need to go buy disability insurance, I buy it. I need to go put money in a Roth IRA because now's the time, and I've got to use compounding interest. And, like, there's some reasoning behind some of this stuff, but a lot of it was more transactional. It was buying a product or just doing something. And then a lot of people would say to us, this is a phrase someone actually said to me once, is, I don't finance. And I'm like, okay. I mean, you're very smart. I mean, you have a DVM. I'm like, I'm sure you could figure this out. However, there's not a lot of people that are out there to educate the veterinary community to the level. And it just became a mission. And CJ and I, we've started working together. And I think we've just gotten a lot of passion and compassion and love for the industry, that we just, we want to become one of the predominant voices within veterinary medicine when they're looking for personal and business financial guidance.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the more clients we added that were veterinarians, and the more we learned about the community as a whole with the mental health and the suicidal ideations, things like that. Like I mean, I know me, I growing up, I had some friends that struggled with it, have lost people to it, right? That kind of thing. And so understanding that part of it even more so, I think pushed us in that area of like, how do we really help this community and serve this community in the best way we can? And what's funny is the people that say to us that they don't finance, the funny thing is, what they mean is they don't do money well, but everyone has to do money. None of us escape that. None of us escape not having an income and not spending for things. And so it's funny how we're all kind of swimming around in money to a certain degree. You literally can't live without money. And so if the people who say they don't finance, it's like, well, actually you do. The idea is you can finance by accident or you can finance on purpose. And a lot of the time, the difference between accident and on purpose is just a little bit of knowledge. It doesn't even require a whole lot, but it requires a very specific set of knowledge, right? Not canvassing Google and trying to find all the answers, but just knowing what are the specific things that people need to focus on a daily basis in order to be successful.
Yeah. Speaking on behalf of my generation, as a millennial, I went to vet school right at that time where student loans really ramped up. And I remember sitting in a lecture hall and they were basically teaching us, quote unquote, everything we needed to know about student loans. That was all we knew going into it. We knew we wanted to be vets. We really didn't understand what we were getting ourselves into. We didn't understand that we would have a 8.5% interest rate, which is, way more than a home. And so we found ourselves just kind of drowning in this debt that, yes, a lot of us should have pushed to be more educated about. So it's a lot of us are kind of just treading water and, getting by, paying our minimums, and our, the amount we owe just keeps increasing instead of decreasing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Well,
for some people it is.
And some of the things that I think about that change that perception for the good is recognizing that money is a resource, just like time is.
Mhm.
Right? Like we talk about budgeting our time. Now, the weird thing about time is that we all get the same amount of hours in a day, whereas not all of us have the same amount of income.
Mhm.
And so, when you start thinking about money as a tool to use, and you think of even student debts, what was student debt really? It was a tool that you used to get an education, to get an income. And that income you otherwise wouldn't have been able to get to had you not used the tool of debt. And so, recognizing even and starting to come from the position of how is this money, how is this tool utilized in the most efficient way for your benefit, for your family's benefit, for your children's benefit. I think that just coming from that position first and foremost, that kind of creates the foundation of how we want to think about money. And then that usually can help us understand more about how do we manage money as a resource and as a tool, as opposed to, money is the root of all evil. And therefore I can't really be involved with it because, if I'm involved with it, or if I ask for a lot of money from, say, the work that I do, then I must be greedy, right? It's like those things. And by the way, the money is not the root of all evil. The way the scripture goes is the love of money is the root of all evil. So it's not even money itself. Actually, money can be very useful. It's just a matter of how do you use it and how is your heart positioned with money?
I think most of us understand that if you have money and you have wealth, it's beneficial to go see a financial advisor to know what to do with it. I feel like a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and don't have extra money right now, and have to kind of choose what to invest it in. I guess my question is what can you do for those people? And I know, like, as you stated, it's a long-term relationship. It's a lot of growing, and probably a lot of sacrifice and in the beginning, trying to get everything in check. And especially when living beyond your means or whatever the case. What is the benefit of investing in the beginning with working with a financial advisor?
When you make the statement, I mean, it's a very big statement that you put out there too, because there's the mindset that we have around money about, living paycheck to paycheck. Because it's like, when you say people live paycheck to paycheck, if you could unpack that a little bit more of like, is it more because they're just not making enough and they, their household income is not at a certain level? Because I will say veterinarians as a whole, the industry has shifted dramatically, and the income that people are making now, it's incredible, like from what it was. I remember starting in the vet community 10 years ago. Everyone's like, I got 250,000 in debt and I'm making $75,000 coming out of school.
Mhm.
And now I'm seeing the starting salary for people is $130,000.
Yeah,
Huge.
but the debt is looking more like 400,000, depending
Yeah.
on where you're
It
going to
can.
school. So it's
Can.
all kind of shifted, but
Well, I
yeah.
So
think, yeah.
it has shifted, but when we really think about like living paycheck to paycheck or not, so like if you are in a spot to where you feel that way and you believe that your life is stuck in that pattern, that's when you should be talking to someone like us.
Right.
Because in all reality, it's like an advisor. Like I think of, people usually think they need to have money, which is the old antiquated thought process with advisors. Like you go to someone back in the 90s and stockbroker or someone else who it is, and then they have you invest money. However, what kind of behaviors and habits are you creating, and what kind of interactions are you having with your money to really understand? It's like, am I just making more priorities in certain areas of my life, and I just haven't had real conversation with myself and had some sort of spotlight on what I'm doing to be
Mhm.
able to, like, do I want to continue that behavior, or do I want to shift what I'm doing to really, if financial independence is my objective. But then, people could be like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck because they're taking every last dollar they make and trying to pay off debt,
Mhm.
which all they're doing is chasing their tail.
Well,
Right.
and I think the if you've ever heard of portion control, right? The idea of, oh, I only let so much food hit my plate because whatever hits my plate, I'm going to consume. It's the same with money. Like, so some people, they live in paycheck to paycheck when they're making 40,000, and then they make 70, and then they're still living paycheck to paycheck, and then they make 100, and then they're still living paycheck to paycheck. And it's this idea of like, well, my income keeps going up, but I still am living paycheck to paycheck. It's because our nature as human beings is to consume whatever is in front of us. That's not bad. That's just is what it is. And so when it comes to money per se, sometimes people do have an income problem where they do need more income because their expenses are higher than their income. But there is a basic amount of money that everyone needs in order to just survive, right? To have shelter and food, right? But at some point there's an amount of income that someone gets to where now it's probably more about boundaries and in healthy boundaries. We talk about healthy boundaries, especially in with work, or we talk about healthy boundaries maybe with family that have certain effect on us, right? We talk, if anyone's in therapy, or talk about even a lot of this the stuff with when it comes to mental health. Boundaries are a necessity to have in
Mhm.
order to manage life properly, where we're not burned out and we're not giving of ourselves so much that we're not giving enough to ourselves, right? Burnout, because genuine giving is non-depleting. So when you think about money, or how I'm managing my money, perhaps it's just a matter of boundaries and setting up those boundaries and then holding hard and fast to them. Because again, some people do have an income problem. They do need more income because they're just not going to be able to get ahead. But a lot of people they do have a sizable enough income where if they establish some boundaries, and a lot of times people don't even know what those boundaries should look like or what they are. We help a lot with that. But setting up those boundaries should allow for people to have a more freedom and flexibility and be happier with their financial decisions, because they're holding true to the values that they've established, and working within the confines of those boundaries. I know a good question that a lot of people ask, because like people don't really know what a financial advisor really is. Right now, first, I will say one of the best places to go look up a financial advisor, if you want to know what their licenses are, if you want to see if they have any customer lawsuits that have been filed against them, like that would be a good thing to know about a financial advisor. There's a website called brokercheck.com. You type in brokercheck.com. I think it's also .gov, but brokercheck.com, it's where you can look up any financial advisor and see what licenses they have. So if you look up someone's name and they're not even on there, that means they don't have a license. A lot of the times people will say, oh, my financial advisor is so-and-so. And Tom and I will, without them knowing, we'll actually look them up on BrokerCheck while we're like, maybe we're in the meeting with them and we don't find them. And we go, well, that's weird. And then we say, well, what's their website? And then we go to their website, and the website has all this financial stuff on it. And then we look them up and we can't seem to find them. We look up their company. The company's not there. Like, so I think a good thing just for most people to know is like, there is in fact a place that you can look up financial advisors to see what licensing they have, what states are they in. Like if you look me up, I think there's like 60 state registration, because there's multiple different types of licenses that you can have in different states. And so that's one place I think that a lot of people really should know about especially when they're interviewing for financial advisors and they're looking for someone to work with. And I think another thing, Jordan, we did write a whole book designed specifically for people who aren't really sure what to do next. Like if they're like, okay, I have money problems, I don't know how to solve them, I'm really curious as to what the next step would be. Perhaps it would be just as easy as going to Amazon and buying Unleashed is what the book's called, and it's the financial clarity every veterinarian needs.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's very good to know. Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't know what they don't know, and then just kind of get this endless cycle of dread even thinking about it, and need help organizing their life and digging their way out, and have some accountability and all that fun stuff. So,
well, and if you always think in the perspective too of, I don't have much and I'm living a paycheck to paycheck, I'm not going to get past this, I've got all this debt. I mean, of course you're going to always keep feeling that way. And then the receptiveness of like, is there opportunities or things that I can jump at? You're going to be less open to it. And the more that you can shift your mindset to where it's, okay, this is a problem and I want to make it better. And I would like to figure out what to do next because, I want my future to be more secure. I want my kids to be cared for. I'd like to be able to become financially independent at some point or another. You shouldn't be waiting until the part, like, I love it when people say to us sometimes, like, I need some time to save money and then I'll come back and talk to you. And it's like, some people do it. Most people, it's like, they never get there. And then eventually they're like, oh, I think I'm ready now. Cause like, I can't seem to get ahead. And it's like, okay, well, we lost 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's okay. Like time is gone. We could start now. However, it's like, when you're engaging with someone, and I think even coming back to the thing, CJ, you're saying a moment ago about advisors, you should be looking at someone that can really be able to, you shouldn't go to someone and they're like, hey, your investments are doing good. Like, okay, good job. Your insurance policies look great. It's more of like, are you looking forward? Are you constantly trying to take into consideration of the things that you're trying to do? Are the behaviors and the habits you're creating, are they really putting you in a spot to where you want to be financially, or is it more of you just going through the motions of the days? And I know, depending on if you're a single mom, married, multiple kids, whatever the case is, like, yeah, your capacity and amount of time you can devote to things. Like, I mean, I see some moms that have many kids where it's like, holy cow, the amount of stuff that they're able to do. And then there's other people that have one kid and it's like, they can't figure out life. And it's just like, sometimes you just have to have that reality check with yourself and be like, if it is important to me, then I need to take that next step. Like, I need to just do it.
And confidence. Like if
Confidence.
I know that a lot of times when people don't have confidence, sometimes they have to borrow ours. And like, like you listen, you're a DVM, like you should have a ton of confidence because you're insanely brilliant. You're insanely smart. And if you don't worry, if you don't have anxiety, because to a certain degree, there's books written about how worry and anxiety actually shows intelligence, right? Because you have the ability, you have a simulator in your mind to kind of predict how certain decisions are going to play out. And and so having the ability, being intelligent, right? Money is not hard, but I think that the belief that money is hard holds people way back more than anything. Just going back to what Tom was saying about, if you're constantly telling yourself these things, then it's gonna become the reality, as opposed to, okay, let's entertain just for a second that you may be stuck in a rut, and maybe you don't have enough confidence in yourself. We have confidence in you. Tom and I have an insane amount of confidence in you. So like, and we've watched people come to us where they have, I mean, we talk about low confidence. Their confidence is in the trash can. And it's like, look, you just got to find the one thing. There's just win one little area, right? Find another little win, find another little win. We don't have to eat the whole pie all at the same time. Like, I don't know about you guys, but usually when I eat pie, I have a real hard time to, like, I have to fight myself from eating all of it, right? Because I just got to stick to my slice, right? And then stop. But it's like, we have to just find those small wins in the money area. And as you experience small wins, that snowball, you start gaining confidence, and then you start learning, and then you start realizing, oh, this actually isn't that hard. And we've watched people come to us where they're insanely not confident in the money arena. And now their net worth has crossed $1 million, right? Because we've had over a decade of working with them. So, and I think for Tom and I, it even more so drives us, because we're sitting here watching all these people have success with us helping them through the planning process. And we're going, oh my gosh, like, why we need more people to experience this. And like, so we're hiring people, we're growing the company, because we're so tired. Like, I'm sick and tired of veterinarians feeling defeated, but when they don't have to be, they can feel success in this area, and it can be pretty quick. I mean, it doesn't have to take long.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a huge barrier, because believe it or not, veterinarians are a little hard on ourselves and perfectionists. And when we start something, we go all in usually. And if it doesn't go well, then, sometimes it's hard coming back from that. So,
100%.
yeah. So
There's actually
definitely a big one.
a thought I did want to put on that too, because like I meet with an executive coach every week. CJ and I do. It's just a way for us to clear our minds. And there's a conversation I was having recently around, because we're always trying to figure out, like, how do we get more people to, just interact with us and have more conversation. And it seems like, so the biggest part here is this, like, people will interact, that our veterinarians will interact with veterinary medicine and things like all the time, because there's like a certain kind of like connection there. There's like an identity. There's this passion and love for it. But then on the finance side, it's, not a lot of people can identify with it either, because they don't have a lot of experience with it. They seem so foreign and taboo. And either the direction is that you can either go and just like, you just ignore it, or you can try to embrace it. And I've identified more and more over time, it seems like, again, being that perfectionist you're mentioning, Jordan, a lot of people try to do it on their own.
Yeah.
And then they don't even know what they're aiming for. Like, they don't know what their boundaries are. They don't know what rules they're following. And they hope that they get to where they're going to be. And then eventually they get throughout life. And then they're like, well, I wish I would have done this differently. Or, one thing is, I love to ask myself too, it's just like, when you're 85 years old and you look back at your life, are you going to look back and be like, man, I wish I had done that differently? And it's like asking yourself this, of like how you're looking forward throughout your life and making the decisions and taking action on things in your life to where it really is going to put you to where you want to be, versus just accidentally ending up somewhere and being like, oh, well, I guess this is what the cards were dealt for me, and then I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I think there's two main goals for that. One that's more long-term and one that's more short-term. The long-term goal that I think most of our clients is, when they come to us, they don't know that they have it, but we usually will help them discover it. The goal to be able to choose to not work. Like, in other words, you can wake up one morning and go, you know what? I'm going to quit for the next 6 months and take a sabbatical. And you can just do that because your balance sheet allows you to do that. Retirement is effectively quitting forever. Now, usually you can't really retire from something. Usually you have to retire to something. Like, if you're, a lot of people say, well, I'll never retire because I love being a vet, and totally cool. Never retire, 100%. Never plan to never retire. However, it is kind of nice to have the ability to, at some point when you're old enough, go, you know what? I think I want to just go and do my own thing. for now and spend the time with my friends and my family, and not really have to work, right? The idea there is just to be able to choose to work. And I think that's the long-term goal that I think a lot of people are after. They just don't maybe not know that they're after. It's that, so getting a balance sheet that's large enough to where it can produce your income, and you can literally just stop working and your income is being produced by your balance sheet. Amazing. Phenomenal place to be. The short-term goal that I think a lot of people they also want, but they don't know that they want, is to be able to have regretless financial decisions, and it like a constant stream of decisions that they're able to make where it's regretless. And I think Tom and we spend a lot of time not just giving people information, but we want to translate that information to how it impacts them as an individual, so they can make good financial decisions with independent of what we think they should do. They themselves are able to learn and come to their own conclusions over time, because they've learned how to think about money in a different way. They have clarity around the decisions. The simulator in their brain of how things are going to unfold on the other side of a decision becomes stronger when they have people, at least for a little while, that are guiding them through financial decisions for like the first year or two of them working with us. And so that tends to help as well, as far as giving people some clarity and a vision of what they want versus where they're at today.
I think another question we get a lot is investing in our children's education. That seems like a big overwhelming thing to a lot of us. We're dealing with these student loans, and what is that going to look like for them? Are they going to have to do that? How do we save to help them with school? Do you have any advice handling that? I know just it's very situational dependent, but
It tends to be, although I think so remember, even earlier, as I said, genuine giving is non-depleting, right? So sometimes we as parents want to, we want to do the best that we can for our kids, and sometimes that's to almost a sacrifice of our own. And so we've met with a lot of people who are older, who they're like, yeah, I put 4 kids through college and I did all these things for my kids, but they're now like 65 years old and they don't really have anything. And so they can't really retire. They're going to have to work till they're 80 years old. And even then they may have to work beyond, they don't have a financial plan. Their financial future was decided for them, essentially. And I think that it is definitely very situational, but I think the prioritization of things is such that if we can make it so that parents have their financial life buttoned up first, then they'll never get in a spot where they have to go live with their kids when they're 80. Right?
Yeah.
People don't realize it actually comes back around sometimes. And whereas we want to help our kids, it actually can come back around and hurt our kids. Like my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's when I was 16 years old. Had he lived longer, because of the Parkinson's, he would have had to go into a home and could have drained the estate. And then my mom would have been not without much. And then guess who would be taking care of my mom, right? I would be. So I think a lot of the times parents can sometimes button up their own financial plan, get a good financial plan themselves, knowing that in and of itself is going to allow their children to be the beneficiary of that. But whenever they do get that plan done, and now it is time, they got excess money to basically put away for their children. Yeah, there's 529 plans, there's state design savings programs, there's particular types of investment products that they can put money in. There's a whole gamut of things that they can do. Like the idea of where can you put money? I mean, you can literally put money anywhere. As long as there's 2 different types of like investments, I would say. There's wealth storage, which is like things like high yield savings accounts and things where you store wealth. Real estate would be a place where you store wealth. And then there's things that you grow wealth, right? It's more of like a wealth amplification. And so wealth amplification might be things that are a little bit more aggressive, but things that you go into knowing like, okay, I'm trying to get this money to grow as opposed to storing. And I think people kind of recognizing that those 2 different layers of their investment plan can sit side by side, and then saying, okay, if I'm saving for my kids' education, am I going to use a wealth storage program, or am I going to use a wealth creation, wealth amplification program? And that usually can tell people where to put their money in regard to saving for their kids.
Makes sense.
Yeah, something I would just add to that is with kids, one thing is definitely going back and caring for yourself is really important. I will just asking yourself this question as well when you are doing things for your kids. How many opportunities do you have for yourself in the future in comparison to how many opportunities your children are going to have? And of course, you'd like to put them in the best spot you possibly can. And it's like there are culturally wise. I mean, my wife is Filipino too, and it's like culturally there's certain things that they do. It's just a part of their belief system and all that. But then sometimes it's like we make certain decisions because other people say we need to do them, and that's how like the world kind of revolves. And uh, I'm in a certain camp of like I want to, if I have the ability to provide for my kids, for my daughter as well to go to school, like I'm going to do the best that I can. At the same time, I want to teach her to become a very strong, independent woman, and for her to be able to know where to go and how to figure things out and be able to make decisions so she can put herself in a good spot and provide her that coaching and guidance along the way. So it's like, just some of those things like asking yourself as you're approaching this, like it could be important. Maybe even something little is better than nothing if you want to put something aside. But then also like, take into consideration how much are you putting yourself behind financially as well. And if you're okay with that, at least you've taken the time to review it yourself.
I think if there's other resources that they want to know about, we do have a podcast called the Smarter Vet Financial Podcast. It's available on every platform. And if you have a platform that you find that it's not on, you just let us know. We'll get on it. But Apple, Spotify, that kind of, it's even on our website. So, feel free to go check out those at your leisure. Especially if you're on your drive to and from work. We try to keep them about 20 to 30 minutes per episode. There's interviews. We talk about psychology of money. We talk about specific types of money strategies. Talk about even if you're a business owner, we talk about exit planning strategies and succession planning because we are both certified exit planners. So we work a lot with business owners as well as far as employee retention, rewards, recruiting programs, establishing a lot of those and designing those plans for people depending on what they're looking to do. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Awesome. And how can people get a hold of you?
Easiest way is to go to our website. There's a contact us form that you can reach out to us. And if we want to chat, what's involved, what's the commitment, it's more or less like, hey, reach out to us. We can schedule the time to talk. There's no cost to it. Typically we devote at least a half an hour to chat. It's really to talk a little bit more about what you got going on. We can talk a little bit more about how we can assist you. And if it makes sense to take the next step to work together, we can talk about what that is. If not, we need another follow-up meeting to talk about things we can. Even if you're not in a spot to start planning, even to start working through some of this, and maybe there's some stuff you want to concentrate on, we can at least give you some tidbits and things along the way. Maybe even direct you to some certain podcasts or certain things you can focus on just to help. And then we can always come back around. And if you do decide to work with us, we have a whole fun process that we bring people through. So we focus on education. It's really designed at, like, we want to get you organized. We want to help you understand how everything plays together. And then we go through a series of conversations to really be able to dive down in the specifics and create a plan for you. I don't know, CJ, I always give you credit for this, but you sometimes say it's not, but it's to create a good plan has a plan when nothing goes according to plan. That's our biggest MO at the end of the day. It's like, how do we make sure if life does change, you have fail safes and triggers and things in your plan to support it.
Yeah.
And we do focus on fun, and we do focus. It's funny because the first part of anytime we're working with anybody is to get them organized. And if you're a DVM, you probably really like things to be a specific way, right? And so we have that same type of thought process. And so getting people organized, that's one of our favorite things. So even from the very beginning, it can actually be fun. Obviously cleaning out the garage is never extremely fun, but hey, you know what? It's kind of like what we're doing with our finances. We're just getting everything organized and seeing what we need, what we don't, and then taking them through a planning process that leaves no stone unturned. So that's the whole point of what we've designed on the back end. But yeah, obviously there's no cost to talk. And flvetadvisors.com, even though we're Florida Veterinary Advisors, we are national. We're in over 40 states. So you just type in flvetadvisors.com, and then you can go to the contact us page and find us, fill that form out, and we'll get in contact with you.
Awesome. And we'll get that website posted as well, of course. Well, thank you guys so much. Thanks for spending the time with us. I know if anyone's like me, we need all the help we can get.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having us on. You know, we really want to support the DVM moms as much as we can in whatever capacity we can. So thank you very much for having us on. And I'm sure we look forward to meeting more and more people in the group as time progresses.